Well, good morning, everyone. And the first thing I'd like to say is I apologize if you can't see me. I realize this podium is taller than I am. So I will do my best. I'm Wenda Millard, and it's my privilege to be the President and Chief Operating Officer of MediaLink. And we welcome all of you here to our Brand Matters session at CES. We're delighted that you're joining us this morning as we explore the challenges and celebrate the triumphs of fostering creativity in a technology-saturated world. This is a deceptively simple premise that can be devilishly difficult to put into practice, as it involves the seemingly impossible reconciliation of the left and the right brains. And so our program today is designed to do just that, to explore this phenomenon from polar hemispheres. This morning, we will examine the issue through the technology lens. In our afternoon program, we will look at it through the creative lens. Though the interplay of technology and creativity is delicate and often dissonant, it is above all synergistic. Technology provides us with intricate targeting and viral scale, yet without creativity, no piece of content would merit such power and ubiquity of dissemination. This is why I have long argued that in a modern marketing ecosystem, art and science must coexist and collaborate. The problem is, from television commercials to mobile ads and every activation in between, creativity and technology have become codependent, not symbiotic. They are forced together through retrofit solutions in a global scrum of marketing as we continually employ machine learning and human genius to compensate for the other's shortcomings. But we often find that in adopting this approach, technology can diminish creativity as easily as it can elevate it. This may be why you rarely hear a creative use the word data or a technologist talk about the work. This is not a new challenge, of course. Every new technology dating back to the printing press, and maybe even before then, opened up previously unimagined avenues and possibilities for creativity. Yet, there has always existed an inevitable tension between the two. Technology is neat, measurable, and objective. Creativity is messy, instinctive, and personal. Former Sony chairman Howard Stringer, who for much of his career worked at the epicenter of this issue, best articulated, I think, this ever-shifting opposites attract dynamic when he described content and technology as the unexpected couple that they are, as strange bedfellows joined together. Sometimes they misunderstand each other, but isn't that all the definition of marriage anyway? So the question still looms. If we all agree that it is critical to resolve the polarization of technology and creativity, how do we encourage a symbiotic relationship between the two? Today, we search for answers with innovators and leaders on all sides of this vital topic. So let's begin to bridge the gap. It is with great pleasure that I introduce, although she needs no introduction, of course, the one and only, Kara Swisher, the co-executive editor of Recode, and we'll have Kara come on up with her panelists, and she will introduce them to you. Thanks again for being here.
Hi, I'm Kara. I can't believe you've come to the bowels of this convention center to hear about creativity when you think about a convention center. Anyway, thank you, Wenda. Thank you, MediaLink and CEA. I love MediaLink. They're like the puppet masters of CES, just so you know, and they're running everything. So we are going to talk about technology and creativity, and as Wenda said, often the twain never meets, and most people don't think that's the case. And it's a difficult topic because it's caused a lot of problems between Silicon Valley and Hollywood, Silicon Valley and publishing, and yet Silicon Valley marches on, taking over greater and greater swaths of areas that have been largely creative. And so let's talk a little. I want to talk about where we are right now. First, I want everyone to introduce themselves and explain what they do and why they're qualified to talk about tech and creativity, and if they're technological or creative or both. So
Hi, I'm Ian Schafer. I am the founder and CEO of a digital agency called Deep Focus. We're a global digital agency. Prior to founding Deep Focus in 2002, I ran digital at Miramax Films.
I'm Sam Olstein. Hello. Run global innovation at GE. I focus on new platforms and new audiences, and I also run the marketing for our Quirky partnership. Prior to joining GE, I ran a creative media team inside of Omnicom called the Ignition Factory. So creativity is very, very close to my heart.
And you have the most creative haircut, clearly, going on.
Thank you so much, Carol.
Or else you just got home super, super early this morning.
It's a little bit of both.
Yeah,
or just hair.
I don't think he went to sleep. That's the issue there. My name is Curtin. I'm Chief Brand and Innovation Officer at Visa. And before Visa, I was at HP for 6 years. And then before that, I was at Disney for 14.
Fantastic. Okay. Stories, Miramax and Disney. So let's talk about creativity. What do you consider yourself, more a creative or a technology person? Because you all have digital in your titles and innovation and all those kind of buzzwords or exhausting buzzwords of technology. But
yeah, it's fun. I used to. I kind of grew up coding. I spent summers coding Unix at AT&T in New Jersey, which is actually where it was born. And so, I consider myself a creative person, and I always thought those two things could come together, even when it wasn't really obvious. So I can't separate the two. And so I've always been active in both like the development community, which became the entrepreneurial community for those that wanted to grow up there, and then but was kind of pulled in the direction of, I guess you call it storytelling, right? And so just like being actually like making things that people were attracted to. Now it's funny because like people are attracted to things that are made, not just shown to them. For a long time, it was people would fall in love with a television series or hopefully a TV spot. But now the utility of things, apps, platforms, are really competitive, if not eclipsing those kinds of things that were historically pushed to people. So it's hard for me to. I kind of grew up not separating the two, so maybe I'm an anomaly. But yeah.
I don't think I consider myself a technologist in the sense of building technology. It's very much more on the creative side and finding unique applications of that technology in the world of marketing. And I think I've become and grown very, very comfortable in this world of gray, which I think all of us as marketers need to be. And it's finding that sweet spot, being able to kind of invent something, not from a technology standpoint, but from an application of that technology, and build a new model, build a new consumer experience. And I consider that so much more creative than technological, but still very much in this world of grayness where there's no blueprint.
Yeah, I'm unfortunately going to have to just do the ditto because I feel like the concepts are not at odds with one another. I think that there's a blurring of the line between Southern California and Northern California. It used to be in Southern California, that's where the creativity occurred, or in New York, and then in Northern California, that's where the engineers were. And I just don't see that as evident as it once was at all. And I think in order for you to be creative, I don't understand how you could be without feeling at least comfortable understanding the ways in which technology could bring creativity to life. And if you didn't have that left brain, right brain, I kind of feel like you would be, handicapped in terms of your ability to contribute.
So you feel that the storytellers do now have a grasp of the technology at this point?
Yeah, I think that they're taking it into consideration in terms of everything that they and we do. I think of the meetings that we have on a daily basis and the types of companies and brands that we're interacting with. And, they're just kind of conflated concepts. And it's really hard to kind of distinguish what's the technology part of the conversation versus what's the kind of creativity part of the conversation. And I think as a bridged concept, innovation is starting to kind of grow in a way that new media, 10 years ago was the term of art.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the technology part of it used to be about problem solving, and now it's almost, I think, equal parts instigation, which is interesting. People are creating things because the price of creating things has gotten so low, processing power has gotten so inexpensive, that people are actually making things just for the sake of making things. And those pivots that we used to see happening from technology companies to save themselves are now, like Pinterest is probably a great example.
I want to talk about that in a second with Pinterest, but and you agree with this also. You're all in a violent agreement with each other.
Yeah,
I think Silicon Valley has never been more hostile to storytelling, but go ahead.
It's democratized storytelling. Okay. Anyone with a phone, it's so easy to go out and build a community and tell a story. And so that, I think, is what's changed, to your point, where it's not so much about technology that is necessarily solving issues, but it's all of a sudden now there are so many unique personalities who are finding ways to embrace technology in their own voice. And it's limitless, and that's the real opportunity from a marketing standpoint.
To take advantage of these new creators.
Absolutely.
So let's talk a little bit about those new creators, because when I'm saying I think that Silicon Valley is ever more hostile, is they're creating more and more products to deconstruct everything, to allow people to do whatever. And their whole intent, and I often call Google the Borg, they just want to eat you. You know what I mean? They just want to pull in all the information, get as much information as possible, and would like to deconstruct storytelling systems and marketing systems in order for others to do it, or whoever, but they just provide the tools to do so.
Do you consider Netflix a technology company or a creative company?
Well, I think they look friendly to you. You know, sort of like, do you remember the episode of Twilight Zone where they said to serve man and it turned out to be a cookbook? Yeah, I think that they want to...
Not a Borg, but somewhere in the Twilight Zone.
Well, somewhere where it's more... where they're thinking of eventually owning as much as possible of it, so they don't have to get content rights. Mm-hmm. So they have less, so their technologies and devices especially can take over the driver's seat in that. But you may disagree with me, but please tell me why.
No, I mean I just don't see I'm going to put the Borg thing to the side. Okay. I'm not going to touch that one. But I think...
Because they will eat you if you claim it.
But you look at the Apples and the Pixars, and I would argue the Netflixes, who I think kind of innovated their way out of it. Yeah, right. I think that's a new wave of fusion between creativity and technology. And I don't think you need to look, kind of in the rearview mirror too long to look at quote-unquote technology companies who are big iron, big infrastructure companies. Most people thought of them as the IT group. And those companies are like relics if they cannot talk about outcomes. And so every single one of those companies is now talking about the outcome that comes from the cloud, the outcome that comes from big data. And if you don't have the innate ability to tell a story to a blank company on what that outcome is, I just don't think you're going to be successful.
I feel like you're talking about GE. I mean, we are, being a 122-year-old company, it is vital that we find ways to feel contemporary and appeal to younger audiences, to different communities, and change the perception of what you grew up understanding GE to stand about, and what we're going to evolve into and become recognized as, and that's just this essential technology company. So the ways that we're able to embrace data, the cloud, tech into our big machines and industrial sectors are going to. That's the path forward for us. And so if we don't do that, there's we fall back into that 122-year-old perception of what GE stands for. And
that said, we still need jet engines.
Absolutely.
Google or whoever has not figured out the transporter yet. Eventually.
Maybe teleportation, but yes, they have not yet innovated a jet engine on the Dreamliner jet like GE has.
That you know of.
That I know of.
Okay.
I can touch the Borg.
Okay. All right.
I'll touch the Borg. So the new world. So let's say Google represents a new world order of media companies.
All of them, yeah.
Yeah. So that company is rewarded both in its share price and this growth of the company, in providing as frictionless of a way as possible for advertisers to buy access to audience. Frictionless. So if it's all done by machines, and there's about 8 companies out there that are making that, helping to make that happen, the stronger of a company that will be. And they trade in actually like making things less scarce, making things infinite practically. The old world order of media companies, which are still quite valuable, and we can use Disney as an example of that, still trades in scarcity. Scarcity of talent, scarcity of like live events on television, like ESPN. That's why it makes so much money for Disney. And the talent that, so Google aggregates talent where, kind of the old world media companies build and grow talent into standalone properties with built-in audiences. And I think that is a big difference when you look at creativity in the world, and why I would still bet from a creative standpoint on the companies that value the talent more highly and make them scarce, as opposed to being a platform for the infinite growth of more and more talent. Because I will tell you, like, talent gets diluted. There's just, like, everyone, we all have special talents, but not everyone has talent with a capital T. And I think you can even see that, with a lot of the YouTube celebrities. And we talk about the same ones all the time, and they're like Vine celebrities. But and once you pull them off of the Vine platform, they're not necessarily the talent that will grow an audience, say, in the same way that like Miley Cyrus or Victoria Justice or any of these other.
Several of them have 40, 50, 60 million.
They do.
Fans.
They do.
I mean, and you can compare it to Alina Dunham, who has 300,000.
I think
who's more famous.
I would say that the jury's still out on what the half-life of that is. Right, and so like, can that translate? Because we're looking like literally back maybe 18 months. So we don't even know the trajectory of this talent, where they can go. Can they become multi-platform talent? Do they need to be even? And then I would say, how do advertisers deal with that if they're like a singular platform talent, and then they have to actually go out and create content for that specific talent with that one audience? That's a big question that's going to undermine a lot of the way that the agency business works.
About what is creative then? Because you mentioned Vines, for example, and my son, who's 12, only watches Vines, and people I've never heard of, but continually as entertainment. Occasionally goes off and does a Simpsons or something like that, but it tends to spend a lot of time on YouTube on those things. Do you consider those creative marketing and also marketing opportunities?
Vine's fascinating me because, as is any format like it, because when you actually restrict the tools that people can use to create content, you get a lot of great creativity. And so, 90% of Vines in the beginning were all like stop motion stuff, because that was how you could use the app. Then, got into looping. And now that you can really upload any video to Vine, it started to become just like a shorter video format. And some of that initial creativity is even gone from that platform. So I think it still remains to be seen. But to me, again, like great talent is great talent. I mean, if they can perform there, we'll see if they can perform, in other places, and if they become bona fide media properties. But today, at this moment, you've got bona fide media properties even just on Vine. I just don't know how long that will last, or if the next medium will disrupt that.
Well, Vine has been super successful for us, but more recently we've
What are you doing on Vines, for example, as a marketing?
So we have a franchise called 6 Second Science. To encourage people who are science and technology fans to craft a science experiment in 6 seconds and share it with us on Vine.
So a lot of explosions then, right?
Oh, yeah. And we've translated that explosiveness onto Snapchat. And we launched on Snapchat over the summer. We released our moon boot sneakers on Snapchat. Right. And then in the fall, just a month ago, a month ago, we created this pop-up emoji science laboratory, and we were teaching our Snapchat followers how to do science experiments with emojis. So you talk about the creative canvas on platforms like a Vine and a Snapchat, and it's so awesome.
So the goal being what?
The goal being to connect with science and technology fans wherever they are, and growing our Snapchat followers, creating a dialogue, and spreading, scientific goodness through emojis.
I see. Scientific goodness through emojis.
Yeah.
Wow. Nobel Prize right there. Sorry. No, it's interesting. It is interesting. Do you use these tools?
Yeah, I mean, we use them. I don't know that we would use them for advertising. I think we use them for marketing. And to me, the distinction is, we're building content. I think when we think about, working with our agency, and we think about film, we don't think about a TV spot. And so these are just different platforms through which we can convey and portray, who we think Visa is.
What do you think is the most interesting for you all now?
I agree with you.
In terms of a creative solution.
Well, I mean, for me, I think the shorter the form factor, the more interesting it gets, because I just think it puts pressure on you to get the, kind of the essentials down right and well, and effectively, distill what exactly is Visa and what do we stand for and what is its role in who you are. And as you get to less and less seconds, or you get to a smaller and smaller form factor, the pressure of...
Can you give me an example of something that you
I think we did extremely amazing work with the Olympics. I think we've done amazing work with World Cup. I think we did phenomenal work this fall with the NFL. We put a guy on a surfboard in Tahiti with a phone for a product that we rolled out called Visa Checkout, and we asked him to order a pizza on that wave. And he ended up ordering a pizza on the wave, and Red Bull picked it up, and it ended up selling over 1 million pizzas. And so to me, the creativity comes from what is the most theatrical thing that you could possibly come up with. Then how do you fit it into a 60, a 30, a 6-second? That's the way you should think, in my opinion.
As an advertiser, though, because it's funny, because content creators, there's a trend now. I mean, there's the short format stuff, which is great for mobile and great for younger audiences because it's kind of what they do. But if you look at like what Hollywood prefers to do now, look at the migration of talent from film to television. And like the length of a canvas that you have to do over a 13 to 22 episode season versus what you can do in 2.5 hours in film. I'd argue that we're in a golden age of television right now because the availability of it, and not just on broadcasting cable, but also over the top stuff. There is some amazing stuff being produced that is immersive. It's just that people can consume it on their own terms now. And so I think there is long form content is going to enjoy just as much of a renaissance as that short form stuff.
So I want to talk about 2 more mediums I think that are very interesting in that regard when you're talking about this, and you're correct about the television thing because you can consume it on a tablet or a phone. When you're thinking about a Pinterest and a GoPro, I at first was a little bit dubious about GoPro, but recently I've shifted my opinion about it for a wide range of reasons. Mostly because everybody is using them and broadcasting all kinds of stuff. And it leads into the VR stuff that's eventually coming and things like that. And you could see that as a media, as a cross. It's a device and a creative thing and a network in a way. And they, of course, are talking that way. How do you look? Let's start first with GoPro and then Pinterest because they're very different and similar mediums to me.
I think GoPro to me is successful because you could trace it back to the Endless Summer films. It's like that first person view of an amazing experience that you wish you could live through and live vicariously through. When everyone talks about how great GoPro's marketing has been, it's really just because GoPro put the content that people created with their device front and center, which is amazing stuff. It's riding that wave. It's surfing down a mountain. It's paragliding. It's like all these things that that you wouldn't necessarily get to do, but can virtually live.
Except now it's regular people. I mean, I went skiing last weekend, and every kid had one on their helmet.
Yeah.
Everyone.
Yeah. So, and it's because availability has caused it to become democratized.
But that's also, I think that's a great example of where I don't know that there is a line between technology and creativity. I think that technology forces creativity. I don't know anyone who wants to put a GoPro on their bike or on their ski helmet or on their surfboard and then wants to sit in the ocean. They want to have some dynamic thing occur because they've invested in the technology and they've invested in getting it installed on whatever they're riding, and they have an outcome in mind. And now you've turned the person into a producer, a director, the star of the scene. Now it's just all one thing.
The only fear I have about that is that it's become more competitive. So it's driven by competitiveness. So kids, because it's so easy for them to upload talent, to upload footage from stuff, whether it's them dancing or them doing a skateboard trick, it's because they want to outdo somebody else. Whereas maybe in the past when we were a little more analog, it was about just doing something wonderfully creative as a pure expression of the soul. Now it's literally how can we outdo and take it someone else and take it a step forward. So to me that's a little strange, but I think it's just par for the course with the way the technology is.
GoPro is the classic example of one of the best tools that has just leveled the playing field for storytellers. And so many of my friends take them skiing. One of my friends who's actually here was just in Finland chasing the Northern Lights. Put his GoPro on. So it is one of the coolest tools to make anybody a content creator. And I think what they're doing as a company is incredibly interesting. They have a presence on Xbox, building out a formal media property to share and create pipelines for all of these kids who are making incredible videos to share it with people.
What does that present opportunities for you all in terms of reaching your audience then? I mean, you can't fake that kind of stuff. That's sort of genuine, I'm hurtling down a hill, I'm going to kill myself kind of thing.
Yeah, well, for us, I think we try to, we want to encourage people inside of GE to use GoPros in many of our facilities, or whatever it is. And so it's really adopting that mentality and that behavior that exists inside of our own organization, so that we can have scientists inside of the GRC or people who are working at our test flight aviation facility in Ohio incorporate GoPros into their everyday and see what kind of stuff is already happening inside of our own walls and sharing that to spur connections.
I mean, and also, like, for us, our positioning as a company is everywhere you want to be. And we have Morgan Freeman say that at the end of our commercial spots. But, I mean, you can't imagine a better use of a product than GoPro to then tag on everywhere you want to be at the end. I mean, if you think about a banner ad or something to that effect on Yahoo or, MSN, I mean, it doesn't have that same kind of fit. But then in the instance of GoPro, you could immediately see how, millions of American consumers who have a Visa card could be doing things with GoPro that we could tag everywhere you want to be.
Okay.
The GoPro on the bald eagle, I don't know if you've seen that.
Oh, phenomenal.
What?
It's amazing.
They put a GoPro on a bald eagle?
Yeah.
That's almost cruel.
Jaw-dropping.
Okay. All right. Okay. I'm scared where you're
Very
going to put a
American.
GoPro.
Yeah.
You put them on reporters, but you'd be bored out of your mind. Tap, type. Let's talk about Pinterest finally, about where that, because these are the Snapchats, the GoPros. These are new companies that have emerged that do Netflix in a way, that have emerged to take advantage of both. How do you look at a Pinterest comparatively?
I'm fascinated by Pinterest. I'm quite bullish on that platform, primarily because it is a tremendous gauge of intent for audiences. Whereas Google provided that first generation of intent, like I'm looking for something, therefore I'm in the mindset to buy it. Pinterest is kind of like, I always describe it as like half shopping. So it's like acquiring stuff without actually acquiring it, but you're signaling the intent that you'd like to acquire it. So it's it's building a profile by the stuff that you collect. And there's a lot that we can learn, from an advertising perspective, from a brand perspective, as to who our audience is by the stuff that they collect. Which is different than learning about things by the link that people click on. There's obviously, from a business model perspective, there's a long road ahead for Pinterest, and probably a good one. But we are looking at as a strong indicator of what people's purchase intent is and what their interests are. And the fact that you can, unlike Google, you can be like there are influencers like on the platform that through their curation are starting to kind of steer the content tracks on Pinterest one way or another, and it's definitely fascinating, and it has grounds in food, fashion, home design, like all this interior decorating, all things like that, and it's we're going to be doing plenty of work with them this year.
Pinterest is an interesting one. It's one that we probably could be doing a lot more with as a company. We are active on Pinterest mostly through our Quirky partnership, because we've seen that smart home products, lifestyle, that does super well. So we've done a lot on Pinterest, kind of showcasing our connected LED light bulb that we released called Link back in July. But Pinterest is one that there's a huge audience, and it's one that we've done some things, but we probably could be doing more.
I mean, I think we're very bullish on Pinterest as well. We did a big program over the holidays with them and the Golden Pins, and an employee within Visa Marketing came up with this idea and advocated for it herself, and then ultimately we were able to take it to market. We love the user experience of Pinterest. We love the fact that it's somehow like a magnet for creativity. I think it kind of does very well in terms of ultimately producing different types of demographics that we find appealing to kind of speak to and target. And then I think, to your point, there's a nice fusion between the experience, the browsing, and the payment element. And for us, that's kind of like the bullseye.
So I have one last question, and if there's a quick question from the audience, and if you can answer it quickly, what is the most creative technology company, and what is the most technological creative company out there? Quickly.
I'll tell you, just we haven't talked about them much. So Snapchat, to me, is fascinating. And Snapchat has cracked something that many a startup has tried to crack as their main premise, and Snapchat kind of, I feel like, stumbled into it. But that is the chronicling of stories at live events and making that something that people actually want to do. So like the stories product there is fascinating. What they did around New Year's Eve was amazing. And the fact that that's become like an ancillary feature of the platform that is starting to break out is a really creative move for them.
And a creative company that's very technological in a clever way, very quickly.
I would probably have to say GE. I mean, just in the way that they've made what is typically shareholder communications, like on the spots that you would normally see in between, like erectile dysfunction ads on CNN. Like, they've managed to make this stuff, about like fantasy and science. And it's,
those
amazing.
ads wouldn't be there if they didn't work. But
Yeah. Thank you, Ian. You stole mine. I mean, yeah, I'd like to think we're
you can't say yourself.
I actually think that a lot of creative agencies, I think, are embracing technology in really, really interesting ways. And they're organizations that are rooted on their creative spirit, and so they have that innately. And so to be able to embrace new products and processes, I think, is really, really cool. And then the most creative technology company, it's for me, and what I mentioned earlier is Snapchat. The ability for any kid, anyone, anywhere to, draw a little doodle and share that with hundreds of thousands of people is the potential and opportunities to activate live events. What you're doing in the moment it's awesome.
Okay, I guess my answers would be probably Pixar for, and I guess it'd be interesting which way you go, but I go
creative.
I go creative, who uses technology. I mean, the fact that they went from hand-drawn animation to zeros and ones is pretty amazing to me, and have done it so well. Going the opposite direction, I think, Twitter is still a brand and a platform that amazes me. I mean, if you just look at what's happening today, I mean, so many people are posting here about what is occurring and then adding video and then adding kind of surrounding material. We were on a panel yesterday with Shaquille O'Neal, and just the guy's got 10 million followers, and he's like, I mean, he's expressing himself and creating himself, frankly, through Twitter.
Great. Any questions from the audience? Really quickly?
If you have any questions, you can use this mic, or you
Just
can
a minute or
stand.
two.
Thank you.
You can stand. I'll repeat it too.
Yeah. If you can speak loud enough.
Hi, folks. How are you? Great panel. Thanks to MediaLink, and wonderful stuff. You've mentioned a lot of user-generated content for advertising. You mentioned client-generated content coming from GE, ideas from Visa. And Chris, we work together. You know content really well and creative. We developed that Disney Parks channel years ago, which was great. What about the regular ad agencies? It seems that while media has become so creative, I run the Digital Place-Based Ad Association now. It screens in elevators and taxis and malls.
So we have to go quick. Question.
Yeah. So given all that, we see media is very creative. Where do we see the ad agencies? It seems that a lot of bandwidth, time, and energy is spent on banners and 30s. How do you, as clients, instill them to, address all the new media, the new addressability, where, look, the majority of the time is still spent very much on 30s and banners?
For us, we've moved away from a lot of that. We go after custom program after custom program after custom program with publisher partners, with new startup companies. Everything, whether it's creative media, is about an idea.
Yeah, so I mean, we've got BBDO here, who's our agency, and I mean, we sweat these details about what we're trying to do and how we're trying to do it through the creative brief cycle. And so coming out of that is the way in which we'll bring it to life. I think our U.S. budget is now somewhere in like the 50% digital, which is pretty remarkable. So I think that the outcomes kind of validate the intent in terms of where we're going. But we constantly are sweating, what's the best way to bring this to life?
Does it come from you versus the agency? Do you press?
I think it's it's super awkward, Kara, because they're in the audience. But I think it's bilateral. I mean, I think we push them. They certainly push us, and they also represent some other companies and brands, and so they bring that learning to us. But there's a constant creative tension of what is the absolute best work and how do we bring it to market. I mean, the payments category is on fire right now with Apple and with all these other brands, and so we've got to be at our best.
I do think it's critically important because I think the reason you have banner ads is because you let technology companies decide what was creative for a long time.
As Clay Shirky says, institutions tend to preserve the problems that they're the solution for.
Okay,
So I think
one quick question, then we've got to go. Any other?
Yeah.
Right here. Right here. Oh,
Hi.
Oh, sorry.
Devani from 3D Excite. The last question I felt was really hard in terms of just answering one brand. I think collaboration really, being the best at collaborating is becoming a big part of it, and agencies being able to collaborate with vendors and vendors vice versa, and even brands. Who would you say, in your opinion, would be the best collaborator?
The platforms that we wind up working with, there's an increasing movement towards having strategists as a part of the teams on those platforms. And I think it started off years ago, maybe even Facebook, with applying creatives as partners, which wound up being, like, speaking of awkward in kind of an agency brand, then platform, then other creative partner. Now the strategist, and Pinterest does it, Facebook, that's really nice. So the people that can bring strategic thinkers to the table to help us get the most out of the platforms and give us a look at what the future of those platforms are, wind up being the best partners for us in the long run.
For us, it's our agency partners. We have an incredible roster, a very deep bench of agencies that come up with incredible ideas, and oftentimes they're ideas that platforms and publishers are not ready or have not thought of yet. And so we bring things to them and push their teams to accommodate what we want to pull off.
Yeah, and so to me, I just think, the worst type of meetings are in some ways these, getting a sales meeting where the PowerPoint deck is, swapped out with, 12 different names on it and happens to be the Visa meeting at 2:30. Like, that is a completely underwhelming meeting. So for us, we're sitting back saying, look, if we're going to have a meeting, what is the outcome that we want? And then let's talk through how we produce that outcome. And let's have confidence that that roadmap is the fastest way to produce that outcome. It's frankly, if we could blow up PowerPoint and get rid of PowerPoint altogether, I think America would be far better.
Okay.
Please.
Let's talk about that. All right, thank you very much. I'm going to ask you one more question to put you on the spot. What's the first big technology company to buy a creative company? Is it Apple buying Disney, or because it's going to happen? Quick, really quick. Not talking. Just say.
I don't think that Disney would let that. I don't think Disney would let that happen. So I would say, well, I think we saw Disney buying Maker.
Okay,
it was interesting.
Okay,
So
I think the technology company is going to do the opposite.
Yeah, look at Apple buying Beats. Beats, I think, honed in on much more, look, headphones, nothing groundbreaking. It's how they positioned it.
Well, people are saying Yahoo's going to buy a cable network, so...
Yeah, no.
No?
No.
It's not going to happen?
Or Verizon buying AOL.
Or Verizon buying AOL.
No.
Okay, not going to happen? Well, just two ideas.
You heard it here.
All right.
Just two ideas.
Apple's going to buy Disney, is what I think. Anyway, thank you very much. Thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to actually introduce John Amato, president of Billboard and the Hollywood Reporter, for part 2.